Hey guys, I'm Ethan Moore from Stockholm Supply, and 7 years ago I made a video on bandsaw guides. It's called The Truth on Bandsaw Guides. And rewatching that video, I realized I may have been wrong. Now that says a lot for me to say that out loud. Just kidding. But yeah, I think I made a little bit of an oversight there, and I think it's worth me correcting. Now basically, during that video, I went through all the different guides. I'll link the video up top so you can rewatch it, where I talked about bearing guides, I talked about ceramic, phenolic, steel guides, and all the options. And I kind of went through what I liked or what my favorite was, and I'll quickly break that down. Bearing guides here, I'm a fan of. They offer very little friction because they spin, so they don't make a lot of heat up against that bearing. But the thing I don't like about bearing guides is when sawdust falls in that slot, especially wet sawdust, the bearings act a bit like a rolling pin and will push that sawdust up against the side of the blade, and that sawdust will build up, and eventually it can build up so the side of the blade is actually wider than the front, so that blade won't cut good at all. So generally speaking, I'm much more of a fan of block guides. Now blocks come in different forms. You can get steel guides, you can get ceramics, you can get phenolic, which is what I have in our blade lock insert here. And all these block guides work basically the same way. They go up against the side of the blade. And the nice thing is when you're dealing with wet wood, they will help keep the blade clean. Now, in that video, my favorite guide, if you watch it, it ends up being the phenolic guides here. Now the reason being, while the ceramic guides are generally a little more slippery than a phenolic guide would be when it's up against the side of the blade, so these ceramic guides would generate just a little bit less heat than a phenolic guide would. Phenolic guides, because they're soft, you can cut them with the teeth of your blade and you're not going to damage the teeth. Now, the one thing I talked about so little was steel guides. Now, the thing about steel guides, they are not quite as slippery as a ceramic or a phenolic, so they do, when they're up against the side of the blade, generate just a little bit more heat. But they do something that no other guide will do, which I think is very, very important to talk about. So here's a little chart here. This red line here is how much friction each of the guide material will have. So we got tool steel, we got phenolic, and we got ceramic. So you can see phenolic and ceramic very, very similar, and tool steel is just a little bit more. Now what you'll notice here, the blue line is thermal conductivity. Tool steel, way more conductive than phenolic or ceramic. Now where does that come in play? Now you can imagine when you're cutting, the action of that blade rubbing up against the guide, while that may produce a little bit of heat, the vast majority of the heat comes from this. The action of you cutting a piece of wood generates way more heat than any bit of this rubbing up against the guide would. So the fact that these steel guides, as soon as you add them to the saw, they act like a heat sink. So they will draw heat from your blade into the body of your saw. And if you know anything about bandsaw blades, the thing that kills a bandsaw blade is heat. It'll break welds, it'll soften teeth, and that's what wears them out. So there's a reason that every commercial industrial bandsaw, they come automatically with steel guides. So Record Power putting A1 tool steel guides on their bandsaw, I think, was a great choice, because there's no other guide system that will make your bandsaw blade last longer. Another thing that got me thinking as I was cutting there is, and I talked about this 7 years ago, it's amazing what changes in 7 years, but I was really hard on bearings that are facing this direction here, where I'm talking about edge facing thrust bearings are better because they will roll over your weld and they won't cause any clicks or ticks in your cut. Now the vast majority of blades you're going to get nowadays are very, very well manufactured, so you're not going to have those imperfections very much. And one other thing you'll notice with a bearing that's facing this direction is you generally have more surface area touching the back of the blade here. So you're going to get a little bit less deflection on the back here. So it's actually a little bit better supported because you got more flat surface on the back. Whether this style is better or not, I don't know, but it's certainly different. And I thought that'd be worth mentioning too, because my thoughts on that has changed a little bit in the past 7 years as well. So if there was anything else I was wrong about, I want you guys to let me know in the comments here. You can comment on the video itself or email me, info@stockhamsupply.com, and make sure you check out Record Power's new Sabre 300 bandsaw, just available now in North America. I'll be doing some follow-up videos dedicated to this machine because it's pretty cool. Thanks for watching.
Ethan.
Go ahead.
Is your big sister allowed to weigh in on things you're wrong about?
No, she is not.